I think we have quorum, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's call it to order then. Which I will do. I call this meeting to order. Let's have the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to read the land acknowledgement statement. The Pima County Public Library acknowledges the sovereignty of Native nations and acknowledges the 22 federally recognized indigenous tribes of the state of Arizona and those who inhabit Pima County. We honor the vast and often unrecognized contributions and sacrifices of indigenous people and are conscious of the ongoing experience of inequality and political invisibility. In partnership with Native nations, PCPL advocates for full access to its educational, informational, and recreational resources. Calling the public, do we have any members of the public who would like to speak today? Okay. Approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. Let's do September 5th first. Are there any changes that anybody wanted to make to the September 5th minutes? If not, does anyone want to make? Go ahead. Yes.
I move that we approve the minutes of September 5th.
Thanks, Rebecca. Any second? Thanks, John. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, we have a second, that carries then. We have a second set of minutes, September 24th. This is from our special meeting. Thank you, Laura, for getting those minutes together so quickly. Any changes to the September 24th minutes? Sharon?
I have two, if I can find it again. So one is, I wondered if there could be more elaboration in that it's just notes that Dr. Garcia said, or a, yeah, September.
I don't see this printed.
I don't have a printer at home, so I don't know other print things. It's two-sided on the first page. It's 4A. Oh, under Point Sherfield's question, the use of library funds for early childhood education and possible staff reductions. I wondered if that could be elaborated. I specifically asked Dr. Garcia whether the county's commitment to spend $10 million a year on the PEEPS program in any way was influencing the reduction in library services, because he said absolutely wasn't. But I had read Jan's financial memo. It says without dramatic restructuring of the library department. So I saw a disconnect, and I didn't know if at some point, 2 years down the road, it might be important to have that clarification in there.
So what I would look for you is like, do you have specific language you would like to move to see put in the minutes that we can vote on? And then it would be amended, and then we could vote on the minutes as amended.
I would like to see language. Sharon Foltz asked Dr. Garcia if funding PEEPS program for $10 million a year was guiding the possible staff reductions. And he replied, no.
Make louder.
Oh,
She's writing it down, right?
You asked Dr. Garcia funding for the PEEPS program
in the amount of $10 million annually was in any way guiding the reduction of library services. And he answered that it was not. I think that was my remembrance of it. I don't know if anybody else.
Okay, well, that's the motion. Is there a second for the motion on Sharon's amendment to the minutes?
I'll second that.
Okay. I don't know if is there any discussion? Okay. All right, we're gonna vote to amend the minutes then, based on, and I know you have another one after this. You need a second on that? No, we do it one at a time. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment? Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Okay. Number 2, Sharon.
Under my motion, I wanted to just amend that to say delay the community survey by 30 days and involve senior staff and library advisory board and senior leadership at the Friends organizations of the Library Foundation. I specifically wanted them to be.
Okay. Is there a second for Sharon's motion?
Oh, I don't want a second, but
Yes, then, let's see if there's a second.
Which section is it?
it's under the motion that I made. I just wanted to have made note that included in the review would be the Library Foundation leadership and the Friends of the Library Group's leadership.
Yeah.
Because they're major stakeholders.
I have senior staff for Friends and Foundation. Is that okay?
Perfect.
Okay, is there a second for Sharon's motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion?
I would like to say, I don't know if I would have voted the same way if that was part of it, because I think there was a lot of discussion and the motion kept getting mixed up, that when I voted, I thought it was just the library board and the senior staff, not all these other components. That was what my understanding of the motion was. And so I think that would have changed my vote. Okay. One way or the other, so.
I intended I tried to state that in my motion to include those stakeholder groups because they're so important to the library district.
Okay, so any other discussion on Sharon's amendment to the minutes? All those in favor of amending the minutes?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions and abstaining. I don't really remember what.
Abstain.
Thanks, Craig. Louder, did it carry? 3, 2.
There's, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, no.
Two people abstained at least.
Yeah, those abstentions.
Who voted no? I guess
I
we.
voted no.
Anna and Rebecca and Craig. Craig abstained.
Craig
Anna and
Oh,
Yes,
thought
I
Craig
abstained.
voted.
Mary Ann, did you vote in favor?
Yes.
Okay, so I think then it carries?
Well, it's only 2.
No,
3,
John
it's 3, John.
Okay.
Yeah, so 3, 2, 2. Unless is Maria on?
no, she's.
Okay, so that's all our members? The voting members. Okay, so now,
Maria say aye? I'm sorry, didn't Maria message aye? We don't have the, I just have it on the chat.
You had forwarded to, Amber had forwarded to you.
is there a chat on the meeting?
I mean, look, if Dr. Garcia's seen it, there must be.
I'm just, I wrote it,
Yeah.
nothing ever comes up,
But I
so,
don't know if someone said aye.
yeah.
What it was. Yeah, let's check it out.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yes, Maria was against that.
Okay, well, let's figure it out. It matters for the minutes. It doesn't matter for the motion carrying. Back to the discussion about adopting the minutes of September 24th with the amendments that have passed that Sharon proposed. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Front door, camera.
All those abstaining?
I don't.
Okay. All right, that carries. Thanks, everyone. Introductions. We have a new member to our advisory board. Anna, do you want to introduce yourself first?
My name is Ana Sanchez, and I am a native Tucsonan, and I worked for the public library for probably 30 years off and on. And I'm representing District 5, and then be here.
Perfect. We're happy to have you. I'm Mariana Padillas. I represent District 2.
Rebecca Peralta, I District 5 as well.
Francisco Garcia, I'm the deputy county administrator.
And I know.
We work with that.
Jessica Thornburg, Deputy Director of Finance and Facilities. And,
I'm John Halliday from District 1.
Sharon Holtz, District 3.
And the board
Quick Planning
members.
District 3.
I'm Maria Iannone. I'm from District 1, also with John.
Mary Ann O'Neill, District 2.
Great. And that's against the wall. Let's just get everyone.
Renee Goody. Holly Shaker. Vicki Lassiter. Kate Hiller, staff for District 1.
I'm second from administration.
Great, thanks, everyone. Moving on, summary of current events by library board members.
I just want to mention, this is Mary Ann. I attended the kickoff for Desert Streams, and it was a wonderful event, and I think it's going to be a great project. It was very well attended, and I suggest everybody visit Martha Cooper. It turned out fabulous.
Great, thanks, Marianne. Anybody else?
I went to Martha Cooper to the opening as well, and it was very good. It's a lovely space, and the staff couldn't have been more accommodating to the huge group of community members that were there. The children's area was just bubbling with families and kids, and it was, for the day, it was really beautiful to see.
Nice, thanks, Rebecca. Anyone else? Okay. Friends groups. I don't think Mary here.
Penny Marino's online.
Oh, great.
Penny, did you want to give a friends update?
Okay. Penny, if you're trying to speak, you're on mute. Okay. New business. Discussion of library revenue and output measures. John, I'm gonna hand it to you first because you asked for this agenda item.
Yeah, I just want to take a few minutes. You know, the rollout of the future plan was received pretty negative response from public. And now I think the plan's been put on hold, which is great. I think most people are in favor of that. But the plan really raised more questions for me and I know from some of the other board members. And so I just wanted to drill down a little bit on the metrics that I introduced last month, because we're all on the same team and we're really just looking for answers so that, you know, we know what's going on and so we can answer questions from the public. So, you know, so last meeting I shared the basic revenue and output statistics provided by IMLS, you know, the Federal Museum and Library Services Department. And the stats show that compared to other public libraries, similar sized populations throughout the United States, we have among the highest revenue, right up near the top nationwide. Even wealthy counties back east, like Fairfax County, Virginia, and Montgomery County, Maryland, have less money than we do. So I thought it was important to get that out there. And then I also shared just a Western, which showed that if you just look at the Western states that serve, the libraries in the Western states that serve approximately the same population that we do. We come in second place as far as revenue goes. We're right behind San Diego County. And actually somebody pointed out to me after that meeting that actually we're in first place because we have the highest per capita use in the Western states, at least compared to those libraries. So, you know, that's really a good thing, but our most basic output measures that most people look at when they're looking at the success of libraries, like how many hours of public service are we offering and how many books are we checking out? We're near the bottom nationally, and compared to the Western libraries, we're in last place as far as open hours go. And our, you know, the number of books that we check out, whether they're hardback books or electronic books, just compared to the other libraries, we're just not providing all that much service. Fairfax County back east annually has $10 million less than we do, but they provide 68,000 hours of open hours for their population, 68,000. That's 23 branches. And we provide, at least according to the federal report, which is 2 years old, but less than 50,000 hours. In San Diego County, provided 72,000 open hours for their residents, and they checked out over 8 million books. And we checked out fewer than half that, which is probably partly due to the fact that we don't have that many open hours. It's hard to check books out of the library's closed, right? By the way, not that long ago, just before the pandemic, back in 2018, we provided almost 67,000 open hours here in Pima County. So, it looks, at least on paper, that there's been 17,000 hour loss of open hours to the public just since 2018, which is like a 25% decrease in public service. At the same time, we added, at least on paper, we added staff and in fact, talking about staffing, again, on paper, because it seems like there were questions about staffing, but at least on paper, we have the highest staffing of any of the similar sized libraries in the whole western part of the country, more than San Diego, even though they pay much higher salaries and offer many more open hours. Anyway, the federal statute from 2022, and even if we added some hours since then, the recommended closures of Catalina, San Rose, and Del Pueblo would eliminate 5,000 open hours for the public, which would keep us in last place regionally and near the bottom nationally as far as open hours for the public. So I don't want to belabor the point, but basically, the bottom line is our library's tax support is among the best in the nation and the best in the West, but our output measures are among the worst. Yet, the report that we saw last month, the administrative report shows that there's a critical staff shortage. It said we cannot sustain our high levels of service. And then the quote was, however painful, we cannot continue to support the full number of 27 library locations, and that's like a definitive statement. We just cannot do this anymore. And I have to be honest, I just don't get it. I'm hoping you can explain this to me. But San Diego County has 33 locations, but fewer staff than we have. Fresno County, with $10 million less than we have, maintains 35 locations. The administrative report cited things like the homeless issues and substance abuse issues, and the pandemic and the price of books, all that thing. But almost all libraries in the United States have those exact same issues. I don't know of any library that serves a somewhat urban area that doesn't deal with those. So we're not renewed, except when it comes to really high revenue and really low outputs. So we're all the same team here. So I'm not attacking anybody or anything, but I'm just trying to figure out, realizing we have the best tax support of any public library our size in the whole United States, just we're out in the West, anybody. How do we explain to the public the low numbers of service hours we're providing and the low number of book circulations? What's the answer to that?
Well, that's a good question, but we have a presentation that we'd like to share that talks deeply about the budget, and we'll talk about some of those output measures as well.
Okay, great.
And I would say that the majority of the output measures that I'm about to share are exactly what Sean has just shared.
May I ask, will this also cover staffing? So we get an understanding like how many FTEs you have and how many vacancies and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's maybe the main, but like I said, on paper, it looks like we're in great shape, but maybe we have vacant positions that aren't being filled or something. I don't know.
Hey everyone, I'm Jessica Thornburg, and I put together our presentation today with support from Amber and Melissa. So what I'm about to show you is a financial presentation that I recently shared with branch managers that compared FY19 to FY25. That time period was requested because FY19 was the last normal year prior to the pandemic, and everyone wanted to kind of see what changes occurred between those two timeframes. And then the IMLS data is all from FY22. That's the most recent data that MLS has available. So we're going to be looking at two different things. So the FY19 column is the actuals that occurred in FY19, and FY25 is what we plan to do this fiscal year. You can see that our personnel expenses have increased by about 45%, CIP 115, and then I have slides that go into a little bit more detail for some of the increases as well.
What's CIP mean? I'm sorry.
Capital improvement.
Oh, thank you.
And we also have our security costs that have increased as well. So some areas we went down, some areas we went up, but I would say that the most significant difference is going to be our personnel expense. This is just a visualization of the slide that you saw.
Should we ask questions as she goes all the way to the end?
You can ask questions.
I was just curious, because the county did a big salary adjustment and bump. So in that increased personnel, how much of that is additional FTEs or is it at all because of increased, insurance costs, hourly wages and those kinds of things?
So it's going to be increased salary and increased benefit costs.
Okay, so no increase in FTE.
No.
Oh, thank you.
So the first category that I'm going to talk a little bit more about is the CIP. So this year we're going to be spending $10.7 million. And 3.3 million of that are for obligations. So our debt service for the ERP, and that's all of our administrative softwares that the county is moving towards. The broadband initiative match, the Cox ACA grant match, and our small contribution to Native Plant Nursery, which allows us to buy plants and other landscaping at cost. We also have $7.3 million going to our renovations, the Himmel Park expansion, the Mission expansion, and then a little bit for the Martha Cooper reopening that happened this fiscal year. And then we have some residual amounts to finish out some projects, our EV charger project closeout, and then some FM interior library improvements. The next category that I'm going to talk about is security. It isn't a large ticket item on our budget, but it has had a significant increase since FY19. So in FY19 is the blue line, and you can see that we had a higher level of incidents. And then this is the FY19, so the pandemic has not yet happened. April, or was it June? Anyway, so FY24, you can see that we had overall less total incidents per month, and that I think that is to be attributed to our VetSec and off-duty presence at all of our branches, not all of our branches, but the branches where incidents occur. Okay, this is our total incidents by location. Sorry,
I can't do that.
So the top locations for incidents are Woods, the main library, Ekstrom, and Martha Cooper. Is with those first three sets of spikes.
And in 19, you'll see, so the 19 is in green again, and fiscal year 24 in blue. And so what you're seeing is that when we have the security measures in place, that most times the incidents are going down.
And is it the libraries where you're having the most security incidents? Are those also the libraries where you're offering formalized service for unhoused persons on a regular basis? Like in Columbus, I don't know about Woods, but I know Columbus.
Not
is out there.
necessarily. Yeah, no.
But so there's no correlation or some or?
I mean, we have unhoused people at every library, so it would be really hard to parse out what that's entailing.
so for our personnel, this is as of today, what our plans are for our vacancies. So we have new postings that are scheduled to post tomorrow. 1 deputy director of support services, 7 public service. Yeah, my bad. Typo. That's me. That's you. Yeah. We have nobody thought that. I said this to like 4 people. We have 7 FTEs for librarian ones that will post tomorrow, 6.5 FTE of library associates, that's 6 full-time library associates and 1 part-time. And we have 1 FTE for an HR administrative specialist. In review/interviews right now, we have administrative service manager interviews are being scheduled for this week. And I think a lot of them occurred today. And then next week we'll have our FM administrative specialist 1. Then we'll have 4 remaining vacant FTE that will be posted in the new talent management system in December. We've been given a date in December where the new talent system will go live, but there is a potential that we might be able to post things earlier, but we just are waiting to hear more information about that. I do want to talk a little bit more about personnel in that we are moving a lot quicker than we had been before. We are investing in more support by hiring another HR administrative specialist. We are changing our hiring practices in terms of how we are interviewing and how we're scheduling interviews. And things are moving a lot more quickly through the system. So we're working really closely with central HR with Pima County to ensure that we're doing best practices. And the staff have been really receptive to the new changes. So things are definitely moving a lot quicker.
Can I ask before you move on, for the positions that are in interviews, when were those posted?
That's a good question. Just a few weeks ago for both of those. It's been less than a month, I think.
Which one?
For the interviews.
Were they posted?
Yeah.
Like, 2 weeks ago.
Thanks.
So things are moving faster. What was slowing us down before?
So one of the things that we were doing before was doing batch hires. So we were collecting vacant PCNs, not collecting it, that's not having multiple PCNs, posting them all at once, similar to the 7 and 6.5. But then we were waiting to schedule to say, oh, can we get everybody in during this time frame? And now we're having flexibility around when these interviews occur. So we're trying to make sure that we're accommodating our the people who are applying, as well as the staff members who are involved in the hiring process. But previously, we were trying to be as fair as possible to the people who are applying and say, okay, we're gonna have 3 days of interviews. When can you make it? And then with all the different varying availabilities of the applicants, we were finding dates that were way out in the future, which was a disservice to other applicants. So this way, we're adding flexibility, which is making the process go a lot faster.
So at some point, I don't know where I read it, 466 FTEs for the library district. Does that sound about right? I think that our current professors get out.
Let's see, we have 486.
And then are there any still big, like more FTEs available, or
So
does that fill us up?
the 486 plus 18, 20, 4, 10.5, 18.5, 19.5. 20.5, 21.5, so 46 plus 21.5.
But I guess I'm trying to figure out is that gonna take us up to all the FTEs that are allowed in the district? Because a couple of years ago, it was over 500 positions, but I know the county has had some, across the board elimination stuff, so I wasn't sure.
The total FTE is in the 400s. And that will be all of them. That will be filled.
Okay.
If we want to have more than that, we will have to request, which we can do, but we have to have all of our FTE filled before that.
When I was looking at 2022, it was 499. It looks like it came down a little bit, but.
The other piece that I would add is that an organization of this size, especially an organization of the county size, will always have some vacant PCNs. That there is a normal churn that goes with our PCNs that is just inevitable for this organization.
And I'll commit to providing personnel updates at every monthly meeting where we can talk about the progress that we're making. So this output measures that we're about to look at is almost everything that Dawn just said, but we can go ahead and look at them. And I recognize this is a small, so let me see if I can enhance. You won't,
I might be able to just do it.
like if I touch it?
Nope.
No, it's frozen.
It didn't.
Oh, did it?
Did it? Did it go?
You have to look at it.
You moved it one slide back.
Oh,
Oh, no, I think it's just moving it.
this was the idea.
Okay, so the first slide is the population information sorted by physical visits. And then, I wrote on my notes to kind of show where we are in terms of service area population. So we are in 4th for physical visits and 5th for service area population. So in the middle. And then, and most of these are, branches that John had on his previous report. Plus Amber provided additional feedback for some other systems that are similar in size and population. And then the second table is the branch hours sorted by average hours per branch, and this goes back to what John was saying. We have the lowest average hours per branch as of FY 22. We look to see where we are at in FY 25. So in 25, we have an additional branch. We do have more hours open, but if we were to replace where we are in 22 with our data from 25, we would be in the same place. Right. Denver Public Library did not provide hours per year, so that's why they default to last. This is our branch staffing sorted by staff per branch. This is a little challenging because it's hard to know what the systems have in terms of administrative staff and what staff don't work at branches specifically. This is their total staff. So by staff per branch, we are 3rd. And you'll see that we have 4 librarians per branch. Down below, I also added FY 25 here just to see what difference it would provide. So with 27 branches and 486 staff, so less staff than we had in FY 22, we have 122 librarians, which is more than we had in 22. That brings us to 18 staff per branch and 5 librarians per branch, which wouldn't really change our placement in the rankings.
One of the things, numbers are just numbers. And so it is difficult when you're saying like, why is this thing without going into real detail with each one. For instance, Contra Costa, I just happen to know because Melinda Cervantes, who was our previous director, is there. And Contra Costa, their libraries are each in separate towns. So, the FTE for each individual library would be a different scenario than for as we're trying to cover all the libraries. And so there, it shows only like 200 staff, but they're smaller branches kind of thing, so.
Yes, I realize that, every library is a little bit different, does different things, we offer some services that don't even show up in the statistics. But I'm still seeing that we have 499 total staff compared to like San Diego, that's 287, that's like, my math is correct, that's over 200 staff difference. And they're providing all these service hours and all the circulation,
So one of the things that about San Diego County also, because one of our librarians, Alina Rowe, who most of you know, had worked there, and they don't have any intermittent staff. So all of our pages and all of those folks are counted in our paid staff total.
Oh, they all are.
Yes.
well, that's like it should be, even though staff membership, including the full-time people. That's a huge difference in staff at 200, over 200. Anyways, maybe you're right.
Well, that actually accurately captures how many intermittent staff we have. We have about 186 intermittent positions. So if San Diego County is not including their intermittent staff, that could really make a difference.
So do intermittent staff count as FTEs?
No, but they count towards our head count. Well, they do count towards our FTEs. It's just that they have such variable FTE and they have such low FTE that it's really hard to capture them that way. If we were to average out their FTE, it's like 0.26 per. So that times 180 is about the total FTE.
And I'm curious, out of you're saying this is by branch, but where do, like, you have some librarians who have a singular job, they're not like servicing a library, maybe they, like I know here about Des, there's a librarian who's focus is just programs for unhoused persons. I don't know if there's other librarians.
We don't have anyone who that's their only job.
Okay, so there's no special programs that have like their own standalone staff.
There are librarians who work in administration that have administrative jobs and hold the title of librarian. But they're not in the branches, and that's a little bit what's challenging about capturing staff, because we don't know of the other systems, how many of their staff work in administration versus are in the a service position at a branch.
Can you give just even an estimate out of that 499 that's listed, how many of those are administrative and not in the, like, 30?
Maybe.
I was kind of going through the directory trying to figure it out, but
We can find that number.
I was just curious because that will also tell like availability in the branches versus.
So if you take away the paging staff, so almost 200 people, and then you take away anybody who works in administration or outreach office, any of those, that would give
We
you
also
the number.
included social
branches.
services and CSO. Yeah, work services, CSO. Yeah, so the total paid staff is everyone who works at PCPL. And other systems may not be capturing everyone who works in their system.
But we're still saying this is by branch, but it really isn't.
It's just it's the total paid staff divided by.
They just do an average.
Okay.
Yeah. The next table below is the system budget sorted by total operating expense, and there we're fourth place. I added operating expenditures because some of the systems spend more than they earn. And I wanted to reflect the personnel, hard copy, electronic, and other operating expense percentages. So I wanted to grab that. I tried to look into the publicly available budgets for the systems to understand their other operating expense category. And that was really challenging. A lot of the system budgets just say personnel and then operations. So I wasn't able to get an accurate representation of what percentage of their operating expenses is overhead.
But one of the things that we do know is that libraries that work different jurisdictions pay different things. So for instance, you look at San Diego County, their overhead is pretty high too. And that's because they're very much like us. They're a separate taxing district that's under the county, so we pay county overhead. Some of those libraries that are like Phoenix Public Library is not paying overhead to the city. They're just are part of the city budget.
But so if I'm reading that right, our other operating expenses are the highest out of all of those. And is that utilities or?
It's gonna be our facilities, our utilities, our county overhead, our software expenses, our internet. I would say if we go back to the budget slide, our ITD, administrative facilities are some of our top 5 categories, are in our top 5 categories of spending. Where we are number 1 is in computer usage. So even though we don't have the highest number of computers, we have the highest number of computer logins, and we have a pretty high number of wireless sessions. We think that some of the other systems may be monitoring their wireless sessions differently than we do. I'm not totally familiar with ours, but I log into mine once and then I don't log it out again until my phone does something. But I stay in for a very, very long time. And so other systems may be kicking people out after a certain period of time, requiring additional logins. But we don't know that for sure. It's just for Phoenix Public to have 4 million and San Jose Public to have 2.5 million. While the others are around the 200 range, it just kind of seems like, well, maybe they're just counting differently.
But those are computer logins right from our library, right? And it's not from the people logging in from us.
The computer logins are from our library, and then the wireless sessions are going to be people who are logging into the wireless options that are available at the branches. The bottom table is program attendance sorted by average attendance. This is the total program attendance divided by the total library number of library programs. And here we are in last place with an average of 13 people attending each of our programs.
But that second column is how many programs are offered, and it seems like we're not at the bottom of that. There's more opportunities for people to go to programs.
Yeah, so we are probably closer to, let's see.
One of the things we would like to look at too is that during the pandemic, we stopped requiring people as much to have library cards to use the computers. And so we have almost equal computer use of library card holders and non-library card holders. And so our library card numbers would go up if we make a requirement at least to try to get people to have a library card instead of a guest pass. And if we have a new library card campaign coming up pretty soon, so we think that will be a good time to push to have more folks get library cards.
This is the last table. It's the circulation sorted by total circulation. And here we are in 9th place compared to our peers. This is also informing the percentage of the hard copy to electronic material split. And I've been told that we are closer now to 50-50. Yeah, and you can see that a lot of the other sister systems were trending the same as us back in FY22. So I've from my peers telling me that that's the trend, is that the electronic percentage has been going up.
That's good. Can I think, I'm thinking back. Can you go back to the slide before?
Yeah.
I'm not, my brain isn't moving as fast. On this, it looks like even though it's the average attendance, it's like 13, let's say 13 people in a story time, but there's a whole lot more story times going along. So what I think is nice about that is if I was a family, I wouldn't want to go where there's 40 story time for 47 families in there. So I think in one way we can look at that as a positive, that the programs that we are providing are personalized to those people, and it's not huge groups. It's not a concert setting. It's nice for we're meeting their needs, and they might be smaller groups, but we're meeting their needs. So even though we're at 10th, when we look at those two numbers, we can read it. You can choose how you want to read it. Yeah. And we can read it to say, oh, we're the last, but then we can also read it to say, oh, we're providing nice individual services in smaller groups. And what's not bad about that, right?
Yeah. Except this is an average, so we don't know like that. At Wilmot, there's 100 people.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Someplace else.
But on average, smaller group.
So this is our circulation numbers, hard copy to electronic, and then represented by percentages. And this is the final table.
That I would point out with regards to this table in particular, and the trend that our team already discussed in terms of the increasing importance of electronic checkouts, right? That there's a whole different cost structure that's associated with those electronic checkouts. That when Amber used to buy a book to put it in the library, we used it kind of until the darn thing fell apart. Not quite, but kind of. The electronic, the digital media are licensing agreements that have only a certain number of uses. And so anticipate that you will have increasing costs for the price that we paid for those licenses. That is an area where, as I look at the budget with Amber, we really need to sort of plan and program for.
You know, hopefully that's happening in every library in the nation. We're not unique that way, but I'm wondering if the large percentage of electronic books is related to our few open hours. People can't check books out.
If I may, I can speak to that. I'm Kate Demister Lane. I'm the head of our collections. And in fact, our hours increased in January and our digital circulations continue to increase. So I actually think it is that our digital materials were discovered during the pandemic and people really like them.
By where in the community one is.
Oh, I'm sure.
Just to let you know, it appears that we've lost audio on folks.
Oh, we should be back on now.
Can someone give us a thumbs up if you can hear us?
Mary Ann, can you hear us? Craig?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh,
I don't, were you all able to hear my comments about the digital circulation?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Kate.
And Pima County population is growing. I'm not sure what the next census will show, but our population between age 12 and seniors is escalating. And that may also, I don't know, that will affect trends of what people do.
Sure, and I think, Anna, to your point, I think in many areas, there's a lot of outreach work that we need to accomplish. Because even folks who might use the library, if they're not getting to the library, they can't get to the library, then they don't have access to those materials.
Or if they work during the day, like Craig was saying, his library isn't open on weekends or evenings, so he doesn't go to the library.
I wonder if we can go to the next agenda item, because I feel like the same kind of like tone of the conversation is going to be the same, but
Is that the end of our presentation?
yes. Thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Thank you. Will we get a copy of that?
I can send it. Let me change that.
Yeah.
If Marisa hadn't called you out.
I thought Anna's point was excellent, related to digital books, because I'm all in favor of digital books, and I know they're getting a lot of use. But I wonder demographically, what would be interesting with demographics, which citizens are using these digital books the most? And what areas of town are these areas?
Yeah, we can. But it might not be what we think, because what we have did learn is that people use their phones a lot, and especially younger folks actually do their homework on their phone. So reading a book on their phone is not out of their reach. So it will be interesting to see what those demographics look like.
Because we can tie a library card back to a zip code.
Yes. So on the next piece, I don't have a lot to update you. You did see the memo that I sent to County Administrator Lesher, and then she put forward to the Board of Supervisors. Just we did hear what you all had to say. We also heard the community, and so we really just want to take this time to we're not throwing the plan away because there's a lot of good work there. But we are setting it aside for now. We're going to be looking for more information from the community. Our survey is poised and ready to go, which we did send to you. I haven't had any comments from any of you from that. As of the change in the request, I'll send it to the foundation. But if you have changes, please let us know, because we would like to go forward with that. That'll be, sometime by the end of the month, perhaps. If
Craig, are you on? Craig?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great. 'Cause I need you to weigh in here. Craig and I met with Sylvia Lee, our supervisor, and she had a strong suggestion, recommendation that the library district contract with an outside consultant to develop the community survey.
We did.
and run it.
The consultant was, the consultant did that. She's from the U of A.
So what I think Sharon's trying to say is Sylvie Lee wants to brought up the suggestion that for the public input portion, that we hire a private third party that will handle that aspect.
Sure.
Not the plan. The plan is not technically to change, but that the public outreach and questions be handled by a third party.
So we had already talked about that at the last meeting, that we would like to have a consultant help with the community forums. And we have a consultant that worked on the survey, so I'm not really sure what you're asking.
Well, certainly, I do have a lot of suggestions if we go with the current survey, but Sylvia Lee seemed to think that we should have. I didn't know a consultant had developed the survey. I thought that library staff had developed it with assistance from the consultant. That wasn't clear to me. I guess I leave that up to the board in general, as whether we feel like the survey is independent enough, or, because there are things that definitely I would want added to the survey if you were going to go with that survey.
And so this is just the first step. The survey is a first step for us to start gathering information from the community. The idea for community forums is much different.
That's not forums. I'm talking strictly the survey and how we get it out to everybody, not just library card holders, and things like what John brought up, like access. Maybe people aren't going to the library because it's not open the hours they need. They want evening hours or weekend hours, which we didn't address in the survey at all, to say, what would work for your family, or, what are the barriers to using the library. I think that getting some of that data will be really helpful when you go out to the public, both to let them know, to feel welcome, that we do want all of their suggestions, and then have the consultant with the aid of library staff and board, so I guess slice and dice that information to inform us how to go forward.
I think we're talking about a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna try and parse it out a little bit.
That's great.
So we have the survey. You're asking for the feedback because we said we wanted to give feedback. And you want it to be ready by the end of the month, which I think is fair. So would feedback by October 15th be enough time to incorporate it?
That would be great.
Okay, so then let's just set that October 15th.
I thought the plan, by putting the futures plan back on the back burner, I thought the plan was to actually come up with a robust community input plan. And if we're really going to come up with basically a whole process, it seems a little premature to me to be sending out a survey, because the people who are working on that process might want to come up with their own survey. And the public might say, well, why did you survey us in November and now you're surveying us in January or something? And like Sharon just mentioned, there are probably a lot of issues that other people other than us might want to see in a survey, like maybe open hours or digital stuff or whatever it is. I mean, it's a lot of, it seems like it's premature to be surveying at this point.
I mean, I think having the survey could actually help point the community engagement to where it could go. I think there's two different ways to look at it. So I'm not against it.
We survey all the time. I just don't understand why this is such just asking.
This is part of our
feedback.
work. We do surveys
We
regularly.
survey card holders. We don't survey the general
We've
public.
done other surveys as well to non-card holders as well. That's,
Because I think that reaching the general population of Pima County is sometimes really hard, unless you get a lot of support from the media or something, which hopefully you would.
So I think, part of it's the context, right? So if we just focus on the survey, we still don't have like a ton of information about how it's going to be distributed or how you're going to solicit replies to the survey. But I think there's the other questions of like the survey information, like who's going to analyze it afterwards, right? And then also how does this fit into a broader community engagement plan that I know that the library staff is working on. And so it's a lot of things that are moving at the same time, but I don't know if you have any more details you could give on.
So sure, the survey will be in English and Spanish, it'll be online, it'll be in paper. We would welcome getting it out in the community outside of the library, so getting them to the supervisor's offices as well. There'd be lots of ways for people to engage. The consultant who developed the survey would be the one analyzing it, so you don't have to, it's not up to library staff to do that. So I just feel like this is a good first step to kind of get a feel for where things are going. Because it's going to take us time. If we're going to get a consultant to do community forums and all these other things, that's going to take like months. So this very first piece seems like an easy move forward with.
Can you give us more, like maybe by email, some more information about the consultant that is contracted to do the survey and the analysis?
And can you elaborate a little bit more about how the survey will be distributed? Will there be a press release and a story in the newspaper and?
Yeah, absolutely. We would do all the kinds of media outreach that we do for any other event.
And will it be like a link that somebody clicks and then they have to go into the library district, or is it independent?
The webpage that we hope to set up, or that is set up, but we haven't put it out yet, it is on the county's engage page. So any place that anybody does online engagement with the county will be there. We can have QR codes. Sorry, do you want to have any more?
No, I'm sorry. It's just that sound is us.
Well, it's because Mary Ann has her hand up, but Amber, once you finish, we'll go to Mary Ann.
So I think, if you need a full plan of how it's going to roll out, we can have that to you too.
Great. Mary Ann?
I still would like to hear more about the issues that are impacting the library. So I want to make a motion that the board invite the county administrator to have a study session with us before the end of the year to go over the community engagement process and some other issues that are raised in the futures memo.
September 10th is another date.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
All right, great.
Makes sense.
Discussion on the motion. Craig, you have your hand up?
Yeah, not for this, for a different subject.
Okay. Can we take Mary Ann's hand down? Discussion on the motion that Mary Ann brought about having a study session with the county administrator before the end of the year. No discussion. Let's vote. All those in favor? Aye.
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 All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, the motion carries. So Amber, you and I can work together maybe to put that together and put an agenda together. Sure. Great.
And then if we are in meeting, if it's soon, then we could hold off on the survey until after we've had that discussion.
I mean, we said before the end of the year. So I mean, I think.
Oh, that brings up another question,
Well, so
wait.
Craig
Oh,
was in
sorry.
line actually. So Craig, if you want to go now.
I'll let John finish this real quick because I think this is more relevant than what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks, Greg. It's just a quick question. I know we want to move along quickly, but I said, why are we in such a rush? We're planning for the future. Can we afford to wait a couple of months up before we send out a survey?
We're also planning for now. It will help us make decisions now.
Well, and also, I think I may, this is kind of, on everyone's mind because of, the publicity, the news articles. So it would be a good time, I think, to do a survey. And again, the library does surveys, quite often, and we could do this survey. And if it turns out that we need additional information or need to do another survey, that would also, be possible. But I think right now there's a lot of conversation in the community about library services. And so giving folks an opportunity right now to give us feedback, I think would be a good idea. So if we, look at the survey and if there are any questions that we want to add or, I think it would be a good thing to do one as quickly as we can.
I'm also anxious to see what the results would be.
The thing is that people will have another chance than all the forums that are, it's not like this is the only time we're going to solicit opinions. They're gonna have the community forums available as well. This is just the first step in the process, right?
So when are community forums?
Well, we have to have some consultants before we get that going.
And will we see the final survey before you send it out? Because you're gonna be getting suggestions from people by the 15th, and then will we get to see the final survey then before it's launched?
Yes, but please send your information soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
I will also say there's suggestions, right? And all you can do is advise, so there's no guarantee, I think, that they get incorporated, and yeah. Anything else on Craig? Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. So, it's a little hard to hear, and I'm very sorry. I'm in Florida dealing with hurricane issues, but I have no problem with sending out surveys. I think we should send out more surveys. I think the part that sounds like we're getting lost on is what Sharon and Sylvie were talking about was having a third-party group conduct the entire public engagement process, because she asked us specifically, and this will probably hurt some feelings in the room, and I'm sorry, but she asked, do you feel the other board members feel like community trust has been lost? And I think Sharon and I both agree that we do feel like public trust has been lost. I will not speak for the other board members. I'll let them say that, which is why she suggested that. And when she suggested that, I think she actually intended that it would be an entire year-long process of community engagement, which I think is a separate issue, which I think Sharon is going to bring up later. But that said, as far as it relates to this survey and any type of engagement that the board or the library wants to conduct, I don't think we should hold up on any of that.
Thanks, Craig.
Does that make sense? I'm sorry.
It totally does. And, I think at least from District 2, one of the things that we want to see discussed at this meeting with the county supervisor is to make sure that the library has the financial resources to be able to get the help it needs to do the community engagement process. And I think we can put that on the agenda for that meeting.
And I'd like to ask that the survey be out there for at least 2 months, because people, especially winter visitors, a lot of people don't come until like Thanksgiving. We have to give, a few weeks is not going to be enough for the public to respond. We think about our transient population.
We don't even know if there is going to be an end date. What is the deadline for filling out the survey that's contemplated by the plan as it stands?
I think it should be at least 8 weeks.
Based on
winter visitors and when you're gonna launch it, and that a lot of people they're traveling for work or we're just slow to find out that it's gonna happen. Granted, people will procrastinate, whatever, that's human nature, but I just want there to be, again, back to Anna's remark about when the people are anxious to weigh in. I think that we need to give 8 weeks from the time that it launches.
I would like to suggest that we say 6 weeks and see how many responses we have.
But how do we know what is a good response rate?
The consultant will know that because that's their job.
Not doing the consultant, I don't know. What does the national best practices say for a survey?
I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah, I suggest we leave that to the experts.
So, so obviously we survey all the time for a lot of different reasons. And especially with web-based surveys, there is a saturation point that you reach, usually typically before 4 weeks, in terms of the total response rate. The county and the county communications staff is particularly expert at pushing these kinds of instruments through our Instagram, through our various social media channels, through through our website, through some the communication channels that they've established to reach out to stakeholders. So, typically that's a fairly standard kind of time frame. You rarely get much more after 4 weeks. You keep it open for 2 more weeks just to get those stragglers. But that is a fairly standard practice, at least for some of the stuff that we're doing in the county.
And as far as winter visitors, and I live basically in Green Valley, so I understand. Most of the folks nowadays have email, and most of them are connected through our Savannah messaging system, so that they would get the emails or the survey through that as well. So I'm not as concerned about winter visitors.
But not necessarily the ones who are winter visitors but aren't using library services. They would be relying on other.
Targeted Facebook ads.
Yes,
Yeah.
or something like that.
Will there be any signage, and surveys available when people go in the library? Say that they, okay, good, because a lot of people don't have.
That's what we
also.
the reason why we have the paper available.
Yeah, great.
I don't think anybody's trying to hide the survey.
No, it's just, it's so hard to get through to people unless you have like Wilbur the Wildcat, advertising it, then you have to get.
But the other thing that we can do is any community events that are happening during that time, we can have staff there with iPads with the survey on and let people fill it out at the time too. So lots of ways we can get to all of our programs, one libraries, there's lots of places that we provide that.
Great. Anything further on this agenda item?
What's the agenda item again?
Futures planning report?
I had a couple comments about the future planning report. I agree with Craig and I haven't talked about this, but I agree that the rollout of this has really led to a loss of trust in the community, which I get that while I'm out in the community. And I understand why. I'm even on this board. I'm gonna just talk about it honestly. There are things in the report, for example, page 5, I think it was, where it talks, well, I'm not gonna go through, don't worry, I'm not gonna go through the whole report here. Give you some examples. Yeah, we engaged in conversations with our library advisory board friends at the 2024 summer retreat and beyond. It seems that seems to imply that this board was involved in the development of that plan, and that's misleading. It's misleading. The friends of the library feel the same way. I mean, they went to the retreat and they went and stood on different sides of the room, but I'm just saying it's misleading. And also, this is just a second thing I'll bring up is this, it's $90 million that, we need to, the cost to $90 million to stay in this building. That's one of the reasons we have to leave. And this budget, I just feel it's very misleading. It's like 30 million of it is for internal renovations. And somebody told me that haven't we just done some renovations here like in the last couple of years? Third, fourth floor, did we?
Well, we do renovations all the time, because we're using the building, but there would be things that would change. And, the idea is that it's not just the, it's how we want to use the spaces, right? So yeah, we could cut out the $30 million for that, but that doesn't handle all the rest of the infrastructure.
And this is just, we're not, on TV or anything, so we're just here talking openly and honestly. It's 30 million and then it's like 5 million for furniture and equipment, and then there's architectural fees. And then you have the 33.8% inflation, but you're up to like $60 million out of the 90 million. If anybody in the public saw that, you say, well, wait a minute, do we really need $60 million worth of renovations? Maybe we do, but I doubt it. And I think it's a It's a discretionary expense. It's not required. And then in the report, it talks about, and we've got heating, HVAC problems and roof problems and plumbing problems and all this kind of stuff. But those are just ongoing problems that buildings have. You know, it's like, haven't we been planning for that all along?
Sure, and we've worked from them all along, but the fact of the matter is that we've been told that they're not able to find parts for our HVAC anymore. Our, putting in a new elevator system is not gonna be cheap.
No,
It's not very much.
it's $1.5 million, but, and it's not cheap, folks. There are buildings with elevators all over town and roofs and HVAC, everybody, I mean, you just have to plan for building it. It's just a basic management function to plan ahead and take everything. And besides, Laura sent us the agreement between the city and the library. We're required to keep all these things in good condition under the contract. So even if we left this building today, we'd still be on the hook for the HVAC and the roof and all that. So we're not saving any money there. And then the 10 million budgeted, plus I guess the 33% added to that too. Well, anyway, for the year, the same agreement that Laura sent out specifically says the city shall be responsible for maintenance, repair, and the necessary replacement of the exterior marble veneer and all the outside stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, you take out the 60 million, which you say is, we could do, and you take out the 10 million, and if you say all these other things are just ongoing maintenance expenses, which we're on the hook for anyway, we're not saving any money. I mean, it's 90 million, it's put out there like a reason for abandoning this building, but I mean, if taxpayers look at this, they're gonna say, well, wait a minute here. You want 60 million to do interior renovation, shouldn't you maybe come to us and ask for, our opinion on that? Anyway, and I'll tell you, just my observation is that I don't think this building does need $60 million of renovations. And I think the furniture is basically pretty good compared to a lot of other places. So anyway, so I'm just saying, maybe that's why there's a loss of trust, because there's a lot of stuff, and I'm just giving you two examples. There are a lot of things in this report that I report misleading, just being honest. That's all I'm gonna say.
So if I could just sort of correct the record, so that pro forma that you saw, that is our standard pro forma that we do for every single building project. And that's not done by Amber's team. That's done by planning, building planning and design, construction department that all they do is build new buildings and plan for new buildings. And these are based on the way that we plan within the county. And in fact, if the public were to see this form, it would look very similar to a form that is in the public domain about the Northwest Service Center, about any one of our other facilities. So this is a fairly standard format, both for Pima County and for government, to talk about how things are done. You're absolutely right. 90 million is at the top of the range. It was a range between 70 and 75, 78, and $90 million. ADU $7.6 million. So it is a range, but just to be clear, these are not numbers that are being cooked up by library staff. These are the numbers that are being generated by our professional planning and building individuals. So as to the ongoing maintenance of this facility, aside from our operational pieces, one of the things that we demonstrate in that report is that we have, actually not in that report, that we have in the last 10 years or in the last 5 years spent almost, $10 million in internal repairs, renovations. You are absolutely right. Building systems last for a long time, but in fact, we have to replace elevators every once in a while. And these buildings have not been neglected. I want to make sure that it is really clear. These buildings are not in disrepair. These buildings are not buildings that we are ashamed of. But there are some we can be, precisely because we're good at planning for the future, we can prognosticate some major repairs and maintenance costs that we need to plan for. We know that those elevator systems will fail. We know that HVAC will fail. We need to plan for that. That's why we have built it into the pro forma. So Yes, it is expensive. It is expensive to build public buildings right now. We just are finishing up the medical examiners building. We are just going to finish up the Northwest Service Center in this next calendar year. Buildings are very expensive, and especially a building with this kind of square footage and with this kind of utilization. These are very expensive buildings. The document is absolutely agnostic as to whether that's the right thing to do or not. We are just sort of saying, this is what we can anticipate into the future.
Well, it says these necessary improvements make staying in the current building financially unfeasible.
And that's a factual statement that with the current, given what we anticipate is coming up, we will need to sort of think through how we would stay in any building.
So you're saying if the taxpayers don't come up with $60 million for internal renovations, then what?
No, I'm saying that we need to sort of think about what we're gonna do with this building differently. Because that will be kind of the next decision point, right?
This is a pretty big topic, and we already had time with the county administrator scheduled for sometime in the near future. So I'm actually gonna table it. We also have 2 months of reports that we have to go through. And so I'd like to move on if there's any other further comments before we
Quick
close.
question, it's a security issue. So the veneer falling off the building, has anybody called the city and said, fix it? And what was the response?
Do you want to describe what the first?
So the city's response for many years now has been that they come out every so often, tap on the panels to see if they're going to fall. If they appear to be loose, they take them down and then they paint the square gray. So if you go out and look at the building and you see the different colors, that's their response.
I just have one, guess kind of comment that we don't know how well, we kind of know how the public feels about this building because of all the public comment we had in the September meeting. I think that was going in, right? And Mary Ann brought up a very good point about how downtown has lost many cultural and historic places in the name of new buildings. And this building is much more than just a library to the public. And hopefully this will come through loud and clear in the survey, but it has wonderful meeting spaces with a parking garage, very hard to find in downtown. It's free for anybody. And so I think that there is a value added to what is able to be accomplished in this building, aside from the bricks and mortar of what you want to repair. And that has immense value. I don't know how we're going to measure it, but I hope that it will definitely be part of the conversation. Hopefully we can have another conversation about breaking this down so that it's done to a satisfactory way without impinging on people having fun. Thank you.
Any other final comments? Okay. Thank you for retracting the draft report and putting a hold on things, for responding to the public this way. I'm excited about a process that we can build together to engage the community in a really productive way, to see what people really think and how we want to see the library change. Reports. Renee.
Actually, originally, I was gonna step in to talk with Holly, but Holly's got here today.
Great, Holly.
Let's see, we have a really cool exhibit. It's a retrospective local artist and photographer, Luis Carlos Bernal, down in the lobby. I don't know if anyone's seen it, how you came in. It's in collaboration with the Center for Creative Photography, and it's up through the 10th of November. So go check it out if you have not. Someone mentioned, Mary Ann mentioned Desert Streams. The event was really wildly successful. I mean, there were kids all the way up to 90-plus-year-old dancing, having fun. We just opened our second call for artists for the next 25 artists to be selected. And that runs through the 15th of this month. We had a standing room only event at Wilmot, misinformation in the election. That was the 14th of last month. A lot of people were wondering how how they could view it. So the League of Women Voters, who we partnered with, they put it on YouTube. I wanted to also mention, on the opening day of Martha Cooper, they had 900 people in and out throughout the hours they were open. And one last thing is I am one of the co-founding members of the Synapse team, which was born, lack of better words, last year. And we've done a series of Q&As with members of the team. And my turn came up and I sat on it for about 6 months because it felt really self-serving because I write the blog posts and so on and so forth. But I ultimately decided to publish it because I am a member of the team. So if you're curious as to why I joined the Synapse team and love the work that we're doing, it is on the website as a blog post.
And just another update as well, because I do know that we did do a call out for community design library cards. We were inundated with the artwork and it was amazing and beautiful. We had over 400 submissions. We have a team of 10 people who went through all 400 submissions and we whittled it down to 125 submissions that we are now then having to go through another round to get it down. But it was fairly fantastic. So all of the finalists, so all 127 will also get limited edition library cards. I'm sorry, bookmarks. Sorry, yes. And then we're gonna have 6 bookmarks that will be chosen by the committee. And those will go out as limited edition, meaning that we're gonna do a single run of them and encourage people to come out and get a bookmark, library card if they never have before, because this is their chance to get this special version. And then we will likely do another limited edition library card campaign in 2026. So that we give people time to prepare their art for that, so.
Right. Any questions? Okay. Lisa.
I don't have a ton of updates around just, programs. You can see all the amazing stuff that our library staff are doing in the branches, but one announcement I wanted to make is I'm moving into the deputy director position for community engagement. And so I'm moving out of public services. I'm not sure when. I'm kind of in between the two. We're posting the deputy director for public services tomorrow. So that's the one we're posting.
Maybe
I enjoy doing public services. I've been a branch manager for most of my career, but most of my career has been about community engagement and community building and working out in the community. It's really where my passion has always been. And so I'm really excited to be in this new role. That department, it feels like it's kind of a blank slate and that we can build it up how we want. And so I think there's going to be a lot of input in that sort of thing about how that's going to look. And so I'm excited about the opportunity, but transition will be a little slow, but as I move over, I'll start sharing what we're doing.
Okay, so then you'll be on the agenda in the future.
Yes.
When you fill your community engagement. Community director.
Yeah.
Cool. Any questions for Marisa? All right, Jessica.
I don't have anything to really add from my item, but I have added the July and August incidents reports in there. And then the FY 24 total incident summary was to be included and it's missing, so I'll be sure to get that out to you. And then moving forward, that incident report will be included in every agenda.
Thank you. Questions for Jessica? Hey, Amber, this is going fast. We should.
I don't want to speak too soon. But we always forget to talk about things, but really excited about Marisa taking that. What I did want to draw your attention to is I'm going to start putting in my report when we've had unexpected library closures. And if you see that it says due to staffing, that would be a lot of those are lunchtime things where we just don't have staff to send over to a particular branch. And so I want you all to be aware of that happening. Another change that we're making here at the main library is that the 3rd floor reference desk will no longer be staffed. We've lost our children's librarian and some other folks from this library, and while we're filling positions as fast as we can, we've got to, if we're going to maintain our programming at the level that we want to, we have to make some changes. So there will still be a security guard on third floor that, make sure nothing untoward is happening, but there won't be any staff at the reference desk there. They'll be doing reference from the other desks on the second and third floor. So those are, in the meantime, part of the plan that we were working on was to alleviate some of these other issues. And so I would just want to keep you abreast of the changes that we do have to make right now before future planning is in full swing. So thank you.
Questions for Amber?
This was not really addressed in your report, Amber, but when you all spoke about the futures plan, one of the reasons for the planning was, the effects of, working in this changed environment for staff. And so the plan has been put on hold, but that concern for staff is still there and it's immediate. So hopefully, you all will continue to work on ways to, alleviate some of the big, burdensome issues that staff, have just working in our community with all of the social, issues that it seems like a lot of that falls on library staff, and there's whatever you can do to help, alleviate.
Thanks for bringing that up. And we do, we have a grant, Lindy Sipley out in the hallway has been working on our trauma-informed care piece for our staff. And we do have a separate consultant, has nothing to do with futures planning here, but talking about looking toward, they surveyed all the staff to see what their needs are and also the needs that they're seeing from the community. And at the end of that, we're hoping that we'll have some recommendation from the consultant on what we can do for the members of our public who are coming in with the difficulties in their lives, but then also how we support staff through that as well. So you'll be hearing more about that in months to come. So thank you for bringing that up, because that is the real, one of the real realities of our work. And I had a meeting with the master's degree for the university's library school program. I'm on the MA advisory committee. We had a long talk yesterday about there are a lot of folks going into librarianship, but they're looking for different kinds of work. They want to do that remote research kind of work. And so, we're going to be working with them. We already get graduate assistants and some interns from them, but working with them to see how we can encourage folks to want to work in public libraries.
I would just like to go.
So I have a follow-up question to Anna's point, which is, and I don't know, Dr. Garcia, if we need to do something formal as an ask, but until staffing is back to the ideal level, and the problems of crime, drug addiction, and unhoused is a national issue. It certainly, though, is hitting our community very hard. We know this. I haven't seen anything from the Tucson Pima Homeless Coalition about how they're addressing this kind of changing demographics based on the Bill Master show. Sorry, he was interviewing somebody from the sheriff's department and somebody from TPD, and they were talking about the crime and just the kind of the perfect storm that's happening in southern Arizona. But is there a way that we could address, like, taking some of these really stressful situations off of the librarian's duties and tasking some of our other partners, whether it's the health department, our partner clinics like El Rio, TNC, Primavera, Salvation Army. And instead of resourcing those services in the library, we have those sort of resources be at an agency, a behavioral health agency or a medical clinic, someplace that's more equipped to deal with somebody who is struggling with the physical and mental issues of substance abuse, as well as being unhoused, and you know, who else knows what other medical problems they might be facing, diabetes, nutrition. I'm sure, I mean, they need a lot of, it's a very complex issue, I understand that. But is there a way that we can ask, I guess the county, because I don't think the librarian stood up and said, hey, I want to be a case manager, you know, or be a pharmacist. It just, because they're smart and capable and here, they got tasked with doing a lot of things. Is there a way that we can start peeling those unrelated librarian things out of the libraries?
Interpreting its member flaws. Absolutely. So, but first, please understand that, you know, we have a phenomenal Cracker Jack staff.
Yes.
That meet a lot of different needs, that these needs didn't come from administration in terms of the request, you know, will you serve as a cooling center? These needs came from the community, came from some of y'all. And that's why we're filling them here in these kinds of locations. You know, the truth is that unless we're going to close our libraries to the public or to people who are just card holders, it will be pretty hard for houseless individuals not to walk in.
I want unhoused people to come in the library, to use the computer, to rest in a chair, take a nap if they want, don't even read if you want. What I would like to see move to a more appropriate organization or agency and network are things like distribution of Narcan, signing up for social services or certain services, any kind of food program that you have going on with that. If that could just be taken off the duties of a librarian, I think it'll lower the stress for the librarians, and especially as well, we're understaffed.
Absolutely, and to be clear, you know, the distribution of Narcan is not, or the distribution of food is not a librarian duty, not in the current, but that's not something that we're requiring of our staff. So houseless folks go to where services are. And so if we want to not have those services available in the library so that we don't attract those folks, we can absolutely think about doing that. If we want to look at different ways of serving in the same way that our libraries are under some personnel stress, so are all these organizations that are delivering services in the community. So is our health department, for instance, so are our partner agencies. We would love for folks to go to El Rio rather than to walk into the library. And I think that you just hit the nail on the head, that we want to be welcoming. There's a tension between wanting to be welcoming and wanting to.
And enabling, you know, it's kind of a free area.
And that is a hard line that we've tried to figure out, and but there is a tension there.
I think it's also a great argument for putting the survey out here, because one thing I want to hesitate to do is putting our beliefs and opinions about what people want in place of actually having space for community feedback. Because if you start talking about taking away food programs, right? Like, you know, there's snacks that people depend on that they should be able to get. And so I just want us to be aware of our place, that we're just individuals here who are appointed and representing, but, you know, we do have an opportunity ahead of us to help shape this community engagement process. And that, you know, I think this is one of the big topics. Like, what do people expect out of the library system in terms of the things that are kind of outside of what we think of as a traditional library service?
And I do want to say that having some of our partners in like community workforce development, helping people find housing, having the community health workers does help our staff, because the individuals with those needs are going to come into the library. And if we don't have those other folks there with us, then the librarians do step in and do their best to provide connections. But you know, when we had our library nurse program, that was fabulous. So there are ways for us to have the work happening along with us. And I think we are incumbent in some ways in that around the county, we have a lot of facilities and those are public facilities. And so using them to the best service. Yes, we don't want to overburden our staff, but we also need to respond to the public's needs. So that's our intention.
But I would ask though, are the Parks and Recreation departments also providing some of these services? Because they're all. Okay. Yeah.
Again, I can tell you that like Amber said, we're putting in other county assets, whether it be supplies, whether it be personnel from other departments to meet these needs that are bubbling up in our libraries. They're bubbling up everywhere.
Yeah.
And so yeah, absolutely. In our health department, people are showing up in clinics with some of these same needs. In our community centers, folks are showing up with some of these same challenges. You know, you saw that the administrator sort of kicked off this whole process, create a whole office to try to do some degree of coordination, precisely because the needs are so great in that space. And you're absolutely right. This is super complicated and it's gonna take everybody sort of rowing in the same direction.
Yes. I just wanted to reinforce what Anna said, and that I feel like librarians have taken on a bigger share than some other county buildings and agencies. I mean, there must be 10 county buildings just on this street alone, and so the library isn't the only place to provide services.
Then we'll have the kind of square footage that's available to the public compared to the library. And that's actually, part of why it happens. That's one of the challenges, but I think you're absolutely right. We need to sort of revisit all those assumptions. And I think that Chair is really, makes a really important point that we need to understand what people are expecting from libraries, because again, we didn't become a feeding site or a cooling center or a place for houseless people in a vacuum. This came out of requests from the community, and perhaps those needs are changing, and perhaps those perceptions are changing, and we need to sort of, focus our attention on those changing needs and trying to be better listeners.
This is the last thing I'm going to say. I've talked more in the last couple of meetings than in the last 2 years probably, so I apologize for that. But the last thing I'll say today is I just want to support what Anna said about supporting staff. I hope everything we do leads to that. And I agree with you, Dr. Garcia, we have a crackerjack staff. That being said, I still have the question about total staffing. I thought your report was excellent, but I think it also showed that like all the other libraries have 200 fewer staff members that we have, and they're doing as much or more than we're doing on paper. And so I'd like to hear more. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Amber, but I think I'd appreciate at least hearing something more about that with the next meeting if we could. Just more detail about how we're using our staff. Because we have apparently more staff than everybody else, but we also have to close out at lunchtime to.
Well, what I heard was that we also don't have a clear understanding about how the other libraries are reporting their staff.
Maybe
Where they're
we can
serving,
find out,
right?
yeah.
So I feel like we're comparing a little bit in the dark with that as well.
One thing I would just like to share in closing is that staff are using their time differently than they used to. So, this is not a criticism, but there were lots of staff who would retire with hundreds and hundreds of vacation and sick leave hours. That's not the case anymore. Since pandemic, people are really taking care of themselves, and which is great. But that also means that on any given day, that number that you see of people that should be in the building, that they're not there. So
it's an absentee issue, is that what it is?
I do think that there was a pretty in-depth demonstration that who gave? M gave. Maybe we could get that sent out to the board and then we can take time to review it, because I think it did go over absenteeism, the hours, like who's doing what, like during what portion of the day is dedicated to what, and then maybe we can refine our questions a little bit more out of that and add it as an agenda item.
And I would just like to add that I love, Amber, that you're gonna look into engaging more volunteers to be active in the library. I don't know if those other library systems, if they reported on how many volunteers, but I did, oh, sorry, that did I see a lot. So I did a quick, because I'm part of SAVMA, the PAC reported 58,000 volunteer hours in 2022, which is about $2 million in value and equivalent to like 37 staff people. So volunteers can really fill in some of the gaps and give some support to staff.
Or just so that you know, there are lots of things that volunteers can't do, like accessing patron records, so they
yeah,
can
but
check out
they can
books and
be-
all those things, yeah.
Warm bodies, friendly voices, smiling, just to be added presence, you know, in case the librarian wants to go to the bathroom or something, you know. It's just having come from Ohio, where we have lots of volunteers everywhere, it just adds to the team, you know, the strength of the team. Especially if we get all the retirees.
I'm not sure we're not using volunteers. And then I do know that having volunteers takes up another person's time to coordinate volunteers. It's not like a
free.
a totally free thing. Any other final comments? What about any final motions?
I move to adjourn.
Okay. A second? Anyone? One, all right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great.
Thank you, Craig. Good luck.
Everyone.
Thank you. Mary
Thank
Ann.
you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Mary Ann's probably already off to get some more spin. No, I mean, when I'm, gonna leave, yes. Is it?